All right, so my next question is what was the initial intent of the MCAS, and is it fulfilling that role?
So as an educator who was in the classroom when Ed Reform was first rolled out, the intent was to use the data to provide opportunity to all students, regardless of the community. Personally, as somebody who has been in the classroom all this time, the impact has not matched the intent. And I just want to lift up the recent scores from last year's MCAS, where DESE decided to increase the cutoff, making it harder to pass right after a pandemic. We had 16,000 students not pass on their first attempt. 63% of those 16,000 students were EL learners. 21% were low income, and 31% were students with an individualized education plan.
I think one of the other unexpected effects of the test is that while it started off being about teacher evaluation in some part, getting a sense of if teachers were teaching across the state in an equal and stable manner that was good for our students, so the intent was right. But as a result, what's happened is my colleagues who teach in the classroom are more focused on teaching to a test than they are to teaching to their strengths. We have teachers who are incredible educators, creative, who want to create spaces for students to demonstrate all the skills and talents that they have. But when you teach for the test, you're really teaching to a deadline. And so you don't have enough hours in the day to be creative. You don't have enough hours in the day to celebrate the multiple intelligences that our students have.
And the other piece, I was also in the classroom. So I was in the classroom before Ed Reform and then afterwards. And so the other piece, to be very clear, and you touched upon this, there are gaps in terms of based on your zip code and based on the school that you attend. And so MCAS was also intended to make sure that if you were a Black child or an English language learner who lived in another part of the state, or if you lived in a rural area, MCAS was intended that no matter where you lived, you were supposed to receive high quality instruction. And that what we called back then gaps, that those gaps would close because everyone would be held to the same standard. That was also a very key piece of the intent.
Yeah, now that I'm hearing you all talk about it, I think I was a part of the first generation tested by the MCAS. And I know some of the students didn't remember anything positive per se, but we used to get bagels. So I remember that. But yeah, in the profession, it's always about measuring results instead of just intention. You can try a million things in the classroom, but what's most impactful is the thing you should follow. Specifically for the psychological safety of the students, how strenuous it is to prepare for a very specific kind of test. And when you talk about the population of students that failed this test, that's the exact population that I teach. So for our students here who didn't even see the impact, whether it was negative or not, or were neutral, there's only one type of test that can stop you from graduating. There's only one type of test that can invalidate all 4 years and add years onto your life. So every other kind of test has different kinds of impact, and it's good to be in the habit of being able to bring forth information in an effective way. But if there's different things that you're doing throughout your entire high school experience, throughout your entire career, one day for a particular test, or how many times you have to retake it, does not measure the quality of the person that you are. It doesn't measure the trajectory of the person you will be, and it doesn't disservice, particularly for students who not only primarily don't speak English, but they do speak multiple languages. They have brilliance in different ways. So rather than just invalidating it or having a one-size-fits-all approach, I think we have to prioritize the life of these students and the people that will be leading. So that should be the intent behind what we're doing, as opposed to trying to hit a specific number.
And Christina said something earlier. She said the intent of the exam was to make sure that every community was getting an equal education. But the unintended effect of MCAS, and someone was talking about this earlier, is that towns and cities with lower MCAS scores are less likely to get homeowners to go there. So what you end up having is MCAS unintentionally affecting a city's ability to prosper, a city's ability to grow new businesses, a city's ability to get people to buy homes. That equals real estate tax, that equals better schools. So the MCAS meant to help every community, but the unintended effect is it's pushing a lot of communities to the side.
Another data point, and again, for those of you who don't know, when I use the term DESE, it's the Department of Education and Secondary Education, and this data is from their site. In districts with high poverty, 61% of the administrators are experienced. 71% of the educators are. And so in some of these districts that the MCAS has put them into receivership, they have a turnover of about 50% of educators every year. And so the impact has actually negated any of the goodwill or the intent, right?
So my question, just to be clear, I don't want to make assumptions. Does the MCAS have an effect on a child's ability to go to college or university afterwards?
Yes, definitely. And these are the stories that people do not hear in the public. And so imagine, and I know because it's happened to my nieces, it's happened to my nephews. You go to school, you can have perfect attendance, you can get all A's and B's, you can be a model student in terms of your behavior. If you don't pass that MCAS, no matter how many times you take it, they will allow you to cross the stage, and you're going to put on your cap and your gown, but when you get that, the diploma, yours is a certificate of attendance. So imagine all that time, and you graduate, and you get your diploma, but you did not graduate because you did not pass the MCAS test. That means you are not going to college. That means you cannot even consider going into the armed services. It prevents you from participating in so many opportunities. And those are the stories that we really don't hear. We just hear, oh, they didn't pass. Well, there's a consequence for not passing, and there's an even greater consequence if you are perhaps from a family where you could be first generation in this country. Your family often doesn't understand. They might be so excited, you're first generation, you're walking across that stage that they see on television so much, but the student is not getting a diploma. And then they're stuck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Throw one piece here. I think one of the arguments that we hear a lot is that only 1 to 2% of students fail already. But what's important to note is when you say 1 to 2%, you're talking across the state of Massachusetts. And when you talk about the state of Massachusetts, you have to recognize that just over 8% are English language learners. You need to also recognize that in places like Dorchester, in places like Brockton, in Brockton, 31% of the students are learning English as a second language. So that 1 to 2% is really felt in communities like this one, in my community, and other communities in the state.
Thank you.
And just real quick, we were canvassing on Saturday, because we talk about the students, that 1% who don't get a diploma. We don't talk about the students who drop out. And we happened to run into an Amazon driver, and we were talking about the question, and he just looked, he said that he was from Boston and he dropped out of the school because of MCAS. So that's a number that we don't even quantify.
Yeah. So, in the spirit of time, thank you all for being here so much. Thank you for all of the information. So to wrap things up, I want to, if two of you can tell me, what is the impact of a yes vote and what is the impact of a no vote, so that folks really understand what the implications are. A quick summary of.
Well, a yes vote will not change anything. The standards will be in place, but what will happen is the accountability system will come off of the back of our most vulnerable students.
So I want to bring clarity to the audience. A yes vote means that you want to get rid of the requirement for students to pass the MCAS in order to graduate. A no vote means that you want to keep things as is. You want to keep the requirement, right? So I want to just kind of speak to that a little bit. What is the implication of a yes vote and a no vote?
So to start with the no vote, if we kept things as is, a lot of the challenges that we're talking about will continue. But just as Ivelisse said, it's about keeping it a requirement for graduation. While a yes vote, and this is an important thing to think about, a yes vote doesn't take the MCAS away. The MCAS continues. It just is no longer a graduation requirement. A small but important decision.
Okay.
So you can still have the benefit of using it for the data and really looking at the data and then adjusting your curriculum and your instruction. However, it's not going to say, oh well, drop out because you didn't pass, or, well, you know what, keep taking the test or maybe get your GED. So that's important to know.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. It's very important.
Good job. Wait 1 second. I really do appreciate the conversation. And at least before you move on, I wanted to just make sure that people understand that this conversation, I know we still have a few more days left. There is one parent that arrived a little bit later, but this parent is confused as to where she stands. So I think because you all, some of you already came really clear with where you are at. There are some folks who are still undecided. So I want to let voice to Taylor Andre, who's in the building, quickly to share with us where you are at and why you are confused about Yes on 2 as a parent.
I'm confused, yes on 2, because what does that mean? Does it mean that we're no longer testing, or we're no longer teaching to the test?
So the test is going to remain, except it's not going to be a requirement for students to graduate.
So if it's not a requirement, are we teaching to the test?
So I think that would be up to all the advocates, the educators, the MTA, all of us. I think that it would be up to us to determine what is the difference, right? What difference would this make if it no longer is a requirement, right? So let it go back to them.
Because I do have other folks that are waiting. Just for people who are waiting to stop, we're going to get you in a minute.
Yeah. So what does this mean? If it's no longer a requirement, what does this mean? Do we change the curriculum?
No, we can't. The frameworks are mandated. We purchase our curriculum based upon the Massachusetts frameworks. We write our lesson plans based upon the Massachusetts frameworks. We have standards-based report cards. Educators get evaluated, so nothing can change with the curriculum. The only thing that changes is the accountability system will not be placed off of the back of students who do really good in our classes, but aren't good test takers.
So just to kind of put a button on the conversation, because I know we had 2 panels on this one already, and we're going to move to transition to the other folks that are patiently waiting, is that what the question is about, and that prevents young people, particularly young people, who don't do well in tests. Look, I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm not going to be any other way. If MCAS was still around today, I would still be in high school, because I was one of those kids that struggled with test taking. Okay?
I still struggle with testing.
Right? So I think it's really about making sure that we are pushing the system to be more creative of how we measure whether or not somebody is learning. So growth mindset. Are we looking at soft skills? There has to be other accountability measures to determine people's ability to move on beyond high school than a test. And I think a test is just standard, and it's also racist, and I've already been public about my support for Yes on 2, and while this is a neutral space, I am being honest about where I stand because I know that this conversation is an issue of equity that nobody really wants to address, and the people who are hurting, who are going to hurt most, are the students.
I think one of the things that made it difficult and what clarified it tonight is that there's so much language that's like corporate language versus yes means and no means. So there's a whole lot of words that parents really, like, it means nothing to us. Whereas yes means people can graduate, they'll still get the MCAS, it'll still be pros to you going to college, but there's not going to be a con of you not being able to graduate. So I think simplifying the language would be easier for parents, especially English language learners, or somebody who's just like, I don't understand any of this. Break it down in simple terms.
Well, I think you just did that. And I think they just did that. So I think we broke it down, y'all. This is the first of the 5 questions. We wanted to really start with something that I know a lot of folks are still on the fence about. So really do appreciate Ivelisse Caraballo from CPLAN and the panelists who came through to help you understand what this looks like. We're moving on to the next question or video. We're going to do something. We're going to move on to the next question. All right, the next question. All right. Everybody. Question 3. Let's roll. Question 3 is on deck. And then question 5. 4. 3, 2, 1. Question 3. Check. Thank you. And really do appreciate everyone coming through. Both of y'all are pro. Yes, right? Really, everybody. You're on yes? Yes. All right. So we do appreciate everybody being here on the studio audience side of things, but it is somewhat of a video production situation. So we're gonna ask everybody. Daisa in particular, I'll start calling people's names out. You don't want me to do that, but I will. Daisa, calling you twice again because I will call you out. That's what I do. Hello. We are back. For our the continuation of our ballot question. Now we're going to be talking about yes on 3, and I want because we don't have someone on the other side of things, I will be asking you some questions that help our viewers understand what the narrative is on the other side, just out of fairness. All right. So introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about why you are. Yes on 3, and what is Yes on 3 all about?
So, hi everybody. I can start and then I'll pass it to my colleague here. I'm Joel Rivera. I'm the Deputy Campaign Manager on the Yes on 3 campaign. I've been with the campaign since August, but this campaign has been going on for a lot longer than that. They've been organizing drivers for many years now, both in Massachusetts and nationally as well. Betty can talk a little more about that because she's been a part of this fight longer than I have. But we had a legislative campaign. We were trying to pass this to the State House for the past year and a half. Unfortunately, we weren't able to pass it. So, like in many other fights before, like the Fair Share Amendment, like driver's licenses, we are taking it to the ballot. So question 3 is about giving Uber and Lyft drivers the option to join a union. That's really all it boils down to. There's currently 70,000 workers in Massachusetts who are eligible to drive Uber and Lyft who don't have the right to join a union because they're independent contractors. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give them that right. Thankfully, the drivers are very much in support of it. This idea comes from them. They're organizers as well on the campaign, so they're organizing their own people. And yeah, the drivers are very supportive. The voters are very supportive as well. We're polling at like 60%. Third-party polls, so hopefully we'll win. I'm not going to jinx it, but we've done the work to make that happen.
That's what I'm talking about. And you're an Uber Lyft driver? Yes. We got the real deal in the studio, y'all. Because I always say the people who are living the realities are the ones who can best talk about why it's so important. We'd love to hear your insight.
Sure. My name is Bethlehem, and I've been driving for Uber and Lyft since they started in Massachusetts at around 2013. And I have completed more than 35,000 rides, 5-star, platinum, you call it. I've done Uber Black, Uber Excel. I've done full-time, overtime, double time. Which makes it through Yes on 3 we really support, and we've been part of the fight, is because since the start we had a very good deal, and we felt as partners as Uber, with Uber and Lyft, that we've been getting 80%, they were keeping 20% as their commission with the platform. But things start changing through time, and the transparency has been very fishy. We're not seeing that transparency, what the rider pays. The only time we say it is when they come in our car and say, oh my God, this ride is very expensive, I paid $30, whereas in our end we only get paid $8 or $7.
Wait. You can't just drop that bomb right now and like not say it again. So people, there are folks that they pay $30 for the ride, but you only get $8. $8. So that's wage theft, just in case you don't know. That's another word for being, robbed.
Yes. And starting drivers feeling that. The way the job is, we are in our car. It's very hard to organize and come across with a driver to stand up together, so it took us a long time. But this has been going on for the last 6-7 years. And it started getting worse. The worst nightmare would be the deactivation. The deactivation, we don't have any due process. You might invest in your car for $35,000, $40,000, and you might be just deactivated the next day when you woke up. It's like every ride is your last ride. It might be that way. Because any customer can come out and say, oh, she might be drinking and driving. That will just take you out of the platform, and it will take you more than 2 weeks maybe to prove yourself. There are things you cannot even prove, like sexual assault. They would just come out and say, oh, she looked to my daughter, I didn't like the way she did, or the comment she gave me was very offensive, and then you'd be flagged as sexual assault or safety, and you never get back. You don't get customer service. And people, we do it full time. I'm a mother of 3 children, and we do it full time. If I get off this job, it's very hard for me after working 10 years to kind of even think any other job. And the fact that it is flexible makes us stick there, and we really rely on it.
Yeah, from what I understand, right, is from on the other side of things, is that what I've been hearing from the no on 3 camp is that what they really are hoping for is to give you the autonomy and the flexibility to be an independent contractor, where you are not like considered an employee of Uber. So can you just talk to us about what that narrative is and how does that land for you?
We're still going to have our flexibility with the union. This is a whole new set of law, and it's going to be the first in the nation.
The first, Massachusetts.
Yes, we're making history.
And you know how Massachusetts is. We love to make history, so okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't take our flexibility or being independent. We're still going to keep that, but we will have voice on the job. We will have someone to represent us.
Can I answer?
Absolutely.
So, thank you, Betty. You've made a bunch of really good points. The last one I think is really important to highlight, and it's this issue of deactivations. Something that I didn't know a lot about before I started this job, but really opened my eyes to it. So, drivers can basically be deactivated by Uber and Lyft, which means they can. There's two apps. There's a passenger app and there's a driver app. They can be shut out, essentially, of the driver app for a passenger complaint. And what we've seen, in particular in our community, Black and Brown immigrant community, is that we face discrimination at much higher rates from passengers because of the color of our skin, because maybe we speak English with an accent. And so folks maybe who don't have the best intentions, might be unhappy about something, they complain about a driver, that driver is then deactivated. As Betty said, many drivers take out tens of thousands of dollars worth of loans to buy nicer cars so that they can, get more expensive rides and make more money. If they're deactivated, they're saddled with all that debt. And so this is a job where the workers take on all the risk, liability, costs associated with the job, but Uber and Lyft, who are providing the mechanism, the app, are taking home all the profits. And another point you made that was really effective was that when it started, the Uber and Lyft drivers used to make a much higher percentage of fares. They would take home 80%, and Uber and Lyft would take 20%. And then they started taking 25 and then 30, and now it's at 50% or more. And it's also not clear how much they're taking. So people might wonder why we want a union. We want a union for better wages, better working conditions, to be able to combat deactivations, and also for more fair transparency. We want the fares to be more stable, and for us to know how much folks are actually making. They only know how much they're making if they strike up a conversation with the passengers. Often the passengers will be like, oh my God, this ride is $30. And then she'll say, well, I'm only making $8 on this trip. And so that two-way communication is how we've learned a lot more information anecdotally about the way their algorithm is working on the back end.
Yeah, and because we have a few other questions that we need to unpack tonight, I really want to be super mindful and respectful of all the other questions that people have on their hearts and minds. But if people wanted to get plugged into question 3, there's still time. What does it look like? How do they get engaged with the campaign? And where do they learn more? Quiet on the set, please. Quiet on the set. Everybody quiet.
Yeah, of course. So vote yes on 3, whether you're voting early, by mail, or in person. Please visit our website, voteyeson3mass.com. We have a lot of great information on there, including our over 100 endorsements, including from City Councilor Julia Mejia, and many others. There's a way there to volunteer as well, and also to commit to vote. So we're a few days left before the election. We're canvassing and phone banking all over the state every day, up until and including election day. So if you have an hour or two to make a phone call, that would be awesome to phone bank with us. If you have 2 or 3 hours and you can come knock on some doors with us, we'd love to have you canvass with us as well. That would be the most effective way to plug into our campaign. And then I would just say an easier lift is we are on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as @VoteYesOn3Mass. So please follow our accounts, like and share our posts. We've been posting a lot of really good content on there, and we'd love for that to be amplified.
Oh my Lord, y'all, one more thing, people. That was the other panelists. One more thing, and that's it. Okay, go. Go.
No, sure. I just want to say, please vote yes on 3. This is the matter of on the job being happy, that we have a voice, and we'll give you a service. It's not easy. We give service to everybody, to doctor's appointments, to airport rides, to school, to anything. Essentially, we are the backbone transportation in Massachusetts all over the nation. So please vote yes and make us happy. Thank you.
And for those folks who are tuning in, you already heard that I have endorsed this particular campaign. For the other ones that I have yet to speak on, don't get mad, don't get jealous, just because I need to make sure that I'm also making informed decisions, and it's really, for me, a lot of it is based on my lived experience or my experience with, the folks who are driving Yes on 3. 32BJ is one of the unions that I've worked with since my onset campaigning back in 2018. They were the first union to endorse me. They support and represent, people, custodians, security officers, really low wage workers. And because I used to clean offices with my mom, it is a union that I have deep respect and regard for. So that's why I went all in for Yes on 3. And also, I think it's really important for us to recognize that when we're talking about this particular issue, is that you guys have been in many ways dealt with in ways that are wage theft. I know there's other ballots that are like this, but there's an app and there's an intentional kind of way in which we're not running in a way that's transparent. And I'm all about transparency and accountability, and this particular yes will give us just that. So yes on 3 all day, every day. Don't forget to stay woke, vote woke, and that's it. For this question, we're going to move on to the next panel. Thank you, everybody. Let's go. Who's next? Who's on deck? Question 4. I have a yes and a no. Or how about yes? Okay. Yes and no's. Come on through. Aye. So I'm going to be honest. Which one is 4? 2 yeses and 1 no? Who's the no?
I'm yes.
Okay. The no, come over here. The no can't. Check out the no. The no is really strategically already dressed like some sort of medical professional, trying to already subliminally let us know something that we don't know about. I don't know what all this is, but I'm here for it. We're gonna find out. Well, I'm about to find out, because I'll be out here, you know. So, again, this is Council at Large Junior Media. We are breaking down all the ballot questions that are up for discussion, and this election is not just about the president, y'all. We got a lot of things here at stake at home that we need you to make sure that when you vote woke, and you stay woke. So I'm going to have you each introduce yourself, tell us your name, and you're already yes, who's on this side, those on this side. I'm in the middle, so don't even try it. But I'd love for you to, when you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what yes on 4 is all about, and then I'm going to have a separate question for you. But tell us what yes on 4 is all about and your name.
Okay, great. So I'm Dr. Hannah McLean. My letters are M-A, M-D, M-P-H. I studied at Harvard, Brown, McGill, Penn, and
You see that?
I actually did bring white coats to the press conference yesterday, but I'm not wearing mine right now. I'm trying to. Sometimes white coats are not the best idea, depending. So let's see. So I have been a psychedelic facilitator training instructor since 2019. I run an organization called Sound Mind Institute, and a lot of what we do is around equity and inclusion and working to create access for different communities. Let's see, so yes on 4, so we are looking to ask folks to support question 4. It's a ballot initiative that we are creating regulated psilocybin services, and also in a second prong of the yes on 4 is decriminalizing 5 different psychedelics. Partly the decriminalization aspect of it is because there are disproportionate arrests and criminalizations around communities of color, so black and brown people are more likely to be arrested for these substances. So part of the regulated system always should include some amount of decriminalization so that we can right the wrongs that have happened in the past.
All right, so for those folks who don't know what psychedelic, drugs are, like when you introduce yourself, tell us what does that mean, and what was it, mushroom? No, she's gonna tell you. You're gonna introduce yourself and tell us what We're gonna find out what psychedelic drugs are right now. So let's go.
I'm Jamie Morey. I'm the Community Engagement Director for the Yes on 4 campaign. I'm also the founder of Parents for Plant Medicine prior to joining the campaign, which is, basically this ballot question, like Hannah said, is creating a regulated therapeutic model for people to receive psychedelic-assisted therapy, which is an extremely safe and effective tool, mental health option for treating treatment-resistant conditions like depression for people who don't respond to medications, PTSD, that's a huge one for veterans. My husband is a veteran. He's an Iraq combat veteran who has struggled for 20 years. He has done all of the things that are supposed to make him well. He's been under the care of the VA. He's taken all the pharmaceuticals. He's done the PTSD program. And, for some people, that's just not enough. And psychedelic-assisted therapy is incredibly effective at treating some of these things that traditional healthcare has not managed to address.
Right. I'm going to go to you in a second, but we still need to know what psychedelic. I mean, when I think about psychedelic, I don't know why I think of rainbows and mushrooms and like lights, and I'm being honest because I'm not the only one. Like I'm telling you, people want to know when you say that word, a lot of folks don't know what that means. And I don't want to dummy it down, but I think it's important for us to understand what is a psychedelic drug. Is it like a mushroom? Is it like a marijuana? Like, what is it?
Yeah, so I studied neurology and occupational medicine, and I'm also a psychoanalyst. And somebody asked me a few years ago, "What kind of doctor are you?" And I said, "A psychedelic doctor." And they said, "Like, does that mean what you wear? You know, like, are you wearing like swirly colors?" And I was like, "No." So psilocybin is the active component of what's in magic mushrooms. So growing magic mushrooms, you can actually test what is in it, and what's inside it is psilocybin. So when you're looking at medical articles about magic mushrooms, it will have the title psilocybin in the name, and will describe the research behind that. So basically what we're doing is we're giving people psychedelic medicine. There's many different kinds. This one's focusing on psilocybin primarily in the regulated side. You give them to a person, and then you sit with them for 6 to 8 hours, and you help them talk through their traumas. Yeah.
Wow, we found out. Okay. So introduce yourself, and you are a no question 4. And are you a real doctor? You just dressed like one of the What's your story? I need to know. What's up?
First of all, very nice to meet you. I haven't met you in person yet. So my name is Anayika Dua. I'm a vascular surgeon at a Boston hospital.
Real doctor, y'all.
And I'm so sorry, I actually was operating her again, so you can smell it, you'll know. But basically, my credentials are MD, MS, MBA, and I trained at Stanford and now work here. So the reason I want to start out with why a no. It's very clearly, loud and clear, I'm going to say, this is not a war on drugs. This is not a drugs are bad and people shouldn't do, no. What this is specifically in this particular situation is not about the idea of psilocybin being used. It's about our ballot question, which is written a little messed up. The ballot question is written saying, on the one hand, you get these facilities where you go and you pay and you get the treatment, as was described, exactly correct, and it absolutely works. I'm going to say it loud and clear. I am not trying to in any way say that the experience of people where it works is not, no. However, for people, it does work for some. For some people, it can hurt them. There is neurogenic, and there is cardiac, so heart issues that have been reported in PubMed, which is our medical literature. And we don't exactly know exactly who gets hurt and when. So, for example, a psychedelic drug works on brain chemistry, and the way it works, and it does work, is that it will unlock different neuronal pathways that you can then tap into and make people better. But if somebody's, let's say, 24 weeks pregnant, what is the effect on the child's brain? I don't know. It could be great, it could be terrible, it could be nothing. I don't know. If you're a veteran who's using it, who's older, and they're on, insulin and some blood thinner for their bypass, and I told you I'm a vascular surgeon, so I'm going to talk about that. What's the effect? Does it make you have thinner blood, better blood? I don't know. And if you're going to say, I don't know, to a lot of medical questions, you could be in a situation that could be negative. The second part of the question, and this is the part where I really took issue, is the second part of the question. Even though the first one says medical facilities where you go and someone sits with you and someone has to drive you home, the second part says you can freely grow in a 12 by 12 foot room in your home as many mushrooms as you want. That is a huge space. And you can make the argument, so what? So what? Someone gets to grow it in their home, it's decriminalized. I don't know, so what? What if their dog gets into it? What if their kid gets into it? My colleague here accurately said about her family member. I have 2 family members with severe mental health disease who take medications for their mental health. And I don't know what would happen if you mixed that with the medications in their brain to begin with. And I think that's the main issue. Give it time, go to Massachusetts. We will study this, the FDA will approve it, and then we will absolutely be the leaders in using it appropriately for the right patients. And wouldn't it be a great day if Medicare would cover it for everybody? Because I don't know a lot of people, black, brown, white, whatever, who can drop $700 per treatment in a facility.
Okay, I'm ready to go, girl, but hold up. Because Boston. I am your Boston City Council, y'all. But everybody's talking about MCAS. And what I've heard from folks, and I'm going to go back to this side before I go to you so you can marinate on your rebuttal. But right now, a lot of people have said that folks who are out of MCAS, maybe the opioid crisis, that they're being fed methadone at methadone clinics when if they had like marijuana. Is marijuana a psychedelic drug or just mushrooms? Because I don't want to insert marijuana into the conversation.
It's not cannabis.
Okay.
It's not.
Okay,
It's
so
not part of this.
So it's just mushrooms? Y'all just trying to do the mushroom thing? Is that it?
Naturally occurring psychedelics.
Because just for the record, it's just mushrooms.
Mushrooms.
What?
There's 5 substances.
Oh, there's 5. I don't talking about mushrooms. What are the other 4?
Well, psilocybin and psilocin.
No, we don't know what that. What is that? Is it a pill? Is it a plant?
They're the ingredient in mushrooms.
Okay, but mushroom is the only plant.
Also, mescaline, which comes from a cactus.
A green thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen those.
Ibogaine, which comes from a root from West Africa.
Which root? Which rat? Oh, it comes from there. It just comes
Iboga
from
is
there.
what the plant is.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Iboga is DMT. Yeah.
Okay, so we got a root from Africa. I just want, because listen, I'm going to say the audience that I'm entertaining this evening most likely is very similar to me. This is the first time that I'm really paying attention. We get a lot of emails around this even before there was a campaign, but I never understood what a psychedelic drug was because I'm like, I don't know, I got people who are homeless right now. I got other, but we got mushrooms, a root that comes from Africa, and what was the other one?
Cactus.
A cactus.
Thank you.
A cactus. Those 3 roots and plants.
So primarily we're talking about plants. And so if I had to name this campaign, I'd say plants over pills, because it's really about plants here. And actually what the FDA is studying is the synthetic form of what's in the mushroom. And so we are asking people to support the actual mushroom itself. So it's about plant medicine. And I think in a lot of ways, so I actually started the first psychedelic training program, legal psychedelic training program in the country. And I'll tell you what, I tried to get as many different people in my training program in 2019 as I could. And I realized everyone in the program, because I was requiring a master's degree in clinical psychology, everyone was like 30 years old, white woman. And I said, okay, so this is, at the time, I'm in West Philadelphia, 80% of the people are black, and I'm like, how do I get people that are here into my program? And so I actually dropped the requirement, and our training program is now a year long, very rigorous. But what I learned is that there was actually a whole contingent of black men in West Philadelphia growing mushrooms and sitting for each other for their PTSD. Because a lot of times people don't even know how to qualify. And race-based trauma is not considered PTSD in this country. So even if you can get access, you have to have certain types of traumas to even get access to these therapies.
We're all traumatized, so like, hello. Well, you want to say something, but I'm going to move to my friend on the other side of the situation, but go ahead and speak, and then I'm going to go to you. Go ahead. And then we have audience questions. We're going to let because people are intrigued by the psychedelic situation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to address some things that Dr. Dewar said. I guess, the most important, there's lots of important ones, but it's very important to realize that these plant medicines have been used in indigenous cultures around the world for literally thousands of years. They are legal throughout most of South and Central America, parts of the Caribbean, Australia, New Zealand, 2 states in the US, and 8 cities and towns in Massachusetts have already decriminalized with no restrictions. And in none of those places has there been an increase in public health risk, like DUIs, hospitalizations? We've looked at the data, it just doesn't, most people don't even know that they've been decriminalized in these Massachusetts cities and towns because they're such a non-issue, and the opposition is raising unfounded fears. And I don't think it's right that our veterans, people who are suffering and have been suffering for decades with no relief, should have to wait for, however long it takes for the federal government to get their act together. People are dying, soldiers are dying, veterans are at 22 a day are committing suicide.
Yeah, I'll just add, it is extraordinarily safe. They are extraordinarily safe. And And we also have screening programs, we have protocols to make sure that if someone has a heart condition or has other issues that make them at risk, we screen them out.
I'm gonna be fair, because there's 2 against 1 here. I gotta neutralize the conversation a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the mic over to the other side of the conversation. Doctor.
No, I actually, that was wonderful, because that's the point she made is exactly the point. They have screening programs to make sure it's safe for certain people. What about those people sitting at home with their 12 by 12 foot room? That's the point. Again, it's not about the drug, it's about the ballot question. Our ballot question should not have had that aspect and most likely would have passed, but I think that element really kind of pushed it over the edge. And there were enough signatures for both to have it just be, hey, we'll have the facilities. I will say, Oregon and Colorado are 2 states that have done this. And, even more so, to add to the point that you're making, same thing. There's not been any, no data to say, oh, these horrible, people are going and doing these horrible things. But it's not about, we're talking about minorities, right? Protection of minorities, and I don't mean black and brown minorities, but any minority group is important. So if I tell you 100 people can take psilocybin, no problem, it works for them, it's wonderful. But 5 people will get a heart attack and die, or have some type of neurosis, would that be acceptable? The answer is no. So we need to find out whether or not certain people have reactions and certain people don't, and that can only happen with studying. Even at the Mass General Hospital here, we have a psilocybin institute, and multiple people who run that institute, the CDC director from Maine, the FDA attempted study that was supposed to go through, all stop, because we just don't have enough data, and the FDA one was stopped because of safety and efficacy concerns. To her point, it's not plant medicine, it was the synthetic form, but still the whole point is, until we know it's safe for the public, we can't unleash it onto the public. So give us more time, let us figure it out, and we will ensure as physicians we'll bring it to you.
Right, and I think what happens, and I'm going to go to our studio audience because I am Oprah right now, is that, and the studio audience member, don't get too comfortable because I don't want to walk off the frame, so I need you to walk into my frame when I call you over, not yet, but just stay right there, during the shot. I think what's happening for a lot of folks is the whole idea of regulating or not regulating, right? And I think that in this time and age, there are some folks who are a little bit worried about things when you're left folks to just go grow stuff. Because people growing things, sometimes grow things that can be dangerous, right? So it sounds like the unregulated part of it is an issue. And I also think that this is the most fascinating, all of them are important, but this one is interesting because I can see pros and cons to both sides of the coin. And I also am curious, going back to the MCAS situation, because this is what I hear a lot from my constituents, is there, and there have been conversations that if people were given something aside, another treatment, like something that is more natural, that people have been known to actually get off of, have a stronger recovery and off of the addiction. Is that true?
Absolutely. These psychedelic drugs, that's one of a very powerful thing that they help with is resolving substance use issues.
So psilocybin is legal in Jamaica as well, so if people just get fed up with this country, just head to Jamaica, it's legal.
It's crazy, because Jamaica, weed is not even legal in Jamaica, but this
It's true. It's strange, but true. Legal for Rastafarians, though, in Jamaica, cannabis is, I would just say that yes, one or two sessions, I have seen people recover from traumas that they have had their entire lives, like deep traumas that sometimes people are suicidal or can't even get out of bed, and we'll go through this regulated process in which we sit with them and we help them, and they then get off the other pills. So it really is about getting people, like curing people. And I would just say it's really, really important to know that we are not proposing that everyone just goes and grows lots of mushrooms and does whatever they want. There's actually a 2-year rulemaking process in which there is the regulated side is creating these systems that have specific trainings, and the trainings are different. I would say medical school didn't teach me anything about psychedelics and didn't teach me how to sit for someone. I did a 5-year psychoanalytic training program, did not teach me how to do it. And there's specific skills that no one actually knows how to do outside of these systems in which we're actually teaching people specifically to sit. And in conjunction with doing this regulated system, the way that you do this in an equitable way is you make sure that you're not arresting people and creating danger to communities that are disproportionately affected.
And because we want to be equitable here, I'm going to call someone from our studio audience who I never know what's going to come out of this one's mouth, but we're going to give you the mic to ask your question, not to me.
So my question is about Johns Hopkins, because Johns Hopkins did have a study on psilocybin, and it was a positive study back in the 60s and 70s, and I read a book about it. It was
How to Change Your Mind?
Yes, great book. And I guess the question is more so for the plants versus pills. When we talk about the FDA, there's so much in our food today that 5 people would die from eating it. And so I'm wondering, trusting the government to make decisions on our behalf hasn't exactly gone well in the last 5 years. So I'm wondering, what does this look like either way? So this, yes, no. There's still amazing shamans that I've met that are sitters, that go to Costa Rica, that go to Argentina, that go to Colorado. Yes, and go and learn how to do these things and then come back. And there's these entire sessions. So what is...
It's happening already.
Yeah, yes.
There's a robust
There's a whole Facebook group.
Yeah, Colorado and Oregon.
And microdosing. And so...
Yes, it's happening. It's happening now. A lot of people are already using these medicines. So our thinking is they should not be criminalized. People should not be criminalized for trying to heal. And the only way to do it shouldn't be, in a regulated model. People who are using these successfully without issues already should not be treated like criminals.
I completely agree with that. That people who it works for, it should work for, but we must protect those who potentially could be we just had that E. coli outbreak that just happened right after Trump went to McDonald's. But anyway, but we know. But the E. coli outbreak, there were 15 people affected. We don't know how many McDonald's burgers were given out every day. But but what happened? A recall on those onions that caused the outbreak. And my point is this, it does, again, I'll say clearly, it works. But if you're hearing what everyone is saying again and again, we're going to, she's trained, we're going to sit with this person, we're going to get them into the mental space where they're now going to get psilocybin, they're going to, in a couple sessions, get better. Awesome. Again, what about that person who's not in the mental space, sitting in their own home, that's grown whatever they wanted to grow, and taking it, and maybe, now they've heard, hey, you know what, I'm a veteran, but I don't have $800 to go spend money to get a session, so I'm going to do it in my own home, but maybe wasn't in the right space, has a psychotic break because they're on a medication for depression anyway. What about that guy? And that, again, forget the FDA, forget him. Think about, again, the Mass General, or Johns Hopkins, or just the doctors that are studying. America has done war on drugs, DARE program, all that nonsense. We all went through it in high school, right? The country's turned a little bit from the 90s onward, NIH. These people are, people are interested in this because there absolutely is medicinal benefit. Loud and clear, there is. But we must find out who those people are that benefit. And the most important thing will be a phase 3 trial, which has never been done. You take it, I don't take it, and we see where we go.
So the question that I wanted to ask you was some people are allergic to X thing that has a class that's in our family. Can it not be when you're saying who can take it, who can't take it based on the pills or medications that they're already taking? Are there not classes already? If you're in this class taking this class of pills, you should not engage. So more about education and less about regulation.
Exactly. And criminalization.
I'm getting, just so you all know, I'm getting the timer on the other side of the situation. And while I do appreciate all of the extra questions that were given for this particular question, we're not going to ask all those questions right now because we still have one more question to unpack. And that's question number 5. And I still got panelists ready to go. And so,
I got a question. Does that make it easy?
you got a question too?
Yeah.
And you, people can tell me we gotta, okay, so can we answer Taylor's question?
Can I just add
one
one quick thing is that in the screening protocols that are very rigorous, if there's any question that we have about whether someone is appropriate or not, I actually reach out to their doctors and I'll say, hey, they have a heart condition. Do you think this is safe? They'll go into the literature and they'll tell me yes or no. So I might have a kidney issue. So we actually we're interfacing with people all the time. I take a group of healthcare workers to Jamaica. They experience psilocybin and we're having amazing conversations. But the people I work closely with have been doing this in their lineages for thousands of years. So.
But what about the kidney guy at home? That's the point. This would probably have been fine without that little bit.
But there are education is the answer, right?
So it sounds like, right, that those, we found out the whole studio is just boycotting the shutdown. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Sorry, so I'm actually here to speak on SO5, where I've been to a lot of these events and I still can't get a clear answer to this. It seems like the big debatable part of this question is being able to grow at home using mushrooms on your own with no oversight, essentially.
Yes.
How many mushrooms can one grow at 144 square feet? And then of those mushrooms, how much of a mushroom is psilocybin and these other drugs? I think that seems to be the number one question we all have is like, can people get a copious amount of mushrooms and start street dealing? Or are we talking like you can grow like 2 to 3 doses of this and like, if you don't have $700, you and your cousin can go sit in a cabin in the woods somewhere and like do some mushrooms and get your mind right so you don't feel terrible about killing somebody in the wall.
I'm going to start with the side of the equation because even the doctor on this side has a good question.
No, that's a great question. Actually, no. She's the most qualified.
Somebody answer the question.
Go ahead.
Answer the question.
She goes. You go. She's done it.
So, first of all, mushrooms, they're not that easy to grow. It's a little, not super easy to grow. And you can grow quite a bit, and if you were to fill up the entire 12 by 12 foot space, you could grow quite a bit, but,
You can't sell them. It's very important.
People are going to sell those damn.
Well, people are already doing it again.
And sell the mushrooms?
Yes.
Absolutely.
They're chocolate.
Yes, you can get them ordered to your doorstep. So
That's going to be a longer
It's in the 90s. What you talking about? It's honestly, it's the injection is much ado about nothing because people access these medicines already and get them ordered to your doorstep.
And this isn't what we're seeing in places like Colorado either. It's not that these, when you legalize in the regulatory framework and have a decriminalization, we're not seeing an uptick in tons of more people growing.
You have a mushroom on you so I can show my viewers what it looks like?
It's not legal yet, so invite us here in a year.
Oh, she got a mushroom t-shirt. That's what they
Like,
like.
save lives.
Oh my
But
God.
I don't know if the argument people are doing it already is, people are doing opioids. We know what happened there. Not that that's an opioid.
It's the doctors that have been
People are
prescribing
people are
opioids.
shooting heroin right now tonight, right? That doesn't mean, just because they're doing it doesn't mean it's okay. I think most important, this is a drug that can really help people, and we bring it into society in the right way. But you know what, even if it's just for pleasure, like no one's saying that's bad. If it's a good thing, it's not addictive and people enjoy it, it's like alcohol. But what do you know about alcohol? If you walk into a store and you're pregnant and you drink, you know that there's fetal alcohol syndrome. You know, where did all that literature come from? Where did cigarette smoking, big labels saying, where did it come from? Research. I couldn't tell you today, if your father was a veteran who was taking XYZ medications, maybe has a little bit of kidney disease, maybe has a little bit of heart, everyone does, when they're a little bit older, I cannot tell you what is the right dose that is protective for your father to take to deal with his PTSD. And until I can tell you that, this is dangerous.
Okay, wait, no, we are not going to go there. Okay, we got to move on. We got another question to unpack, but I am sure that those who are paying attention are going to Google this. They're going to learn a little bit more because I'm fascinated. I know that, something that you said triggered me, because opioids, it's the doctors that prescribe that medication and then they get people hooked on these drugs. And so there's a disconnect there for me right now around that particular situation.
You know what pushed that? Pharmaceutical money. guess how much money this side has versus this side has, if you really want to get into that.
Well, I do. What?
I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid by this campaign.
Okay, wait a minute. So there's money to be made on that side?
Not the lawsuit. It's a for-profit medical center.
Oh, it's a for-profit. Okay.
So if you start a medical center, that's why they're actually in Oregon. Unfortunately,
Many are nonprofit.
they are.
Yeah.
But if you're $700 for a trip, 4 trips on
A trip. That's called like a high.
you know, for treatment. Let's call it
We
treatment.
need to talk about where people could understand.
And also,
a
there's
treatment.
$6 million of funding into the yes side, and approximately $150,000 to $200,000 of funding on the no
Oh,
side.
y'all got no money.
I just add that the American Medical Association, the American Medical Association is in favor of decriminalization.
Oh, okay.
And we've had over 300 medical professionals support this legislation.
But the Massachusetts
All right.
Psychiatric Society.
Ladies and
I wonder
gentlemen,
why.
we are going to stop this conversation because we got one more question to go. But I'm going to tell you this. I know this right here, this was spicy. So stay warm. All right, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is great. I'm sure.
Sorry for the passion. We're trying
No,
to save lives.
are you kidding me? I'm the most passionate person on the city council. I love all of this because you have to believe in what you believe in. You have to fight for what you believe in publicly because that's how you educate.
And we educate, we don't restrict alcohol for pregnant people. We explain to them they shouldn't take it, right? So we're not
Yes.
restricting it, so we're educating, right?
Stop talking, yo. Question 5, Martha. Thank you so much. I have enjoyed. I'm sure all of those folks are Googling psychedelic situation. So question 5. Yes and no. Question 5. Do I have one for each? I hope I have a yes and a no. What I got? You got a yes?
I have a no.
Okay. Oh, yes and no. Yes on this side. No, I like to be in the middle. You come over here. Sit right next to me. That's right. I like to have you like this. I can be like looking at you. I'm gonna give you your own mic. You bet you can get your mic. We find out you wore our colors today.
Yes.
We're doing.
Always.
I'm talking too loud? Yes. I'm getting excited. Why? Can we produce why? Are we on air right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's great.
this is right. He looks beautiful. Welcome back, everybody. I am again your at-large city council, Jubilee here. We are here breaking things down, all the questions that are on the ballot. There's lots at stake, not just the presidential elections, and it's important for you to vote woke and understand what is at stake. So this is question 5. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and what is question 5 on the yes side all about.
Sure thing. So my name is Mitch Gaines. I'm a bartender and server for about 15 years now, going back to 2008. I got my start at Friendly's, if anyone still remembers those. There's a couple of kids in the back, we probably shouldn't tell them about that, though when I scream on the way home. So on the yes side, essentially it's very simple. We're just trying to incrementally raise the minimum wage for servers and bartenders. When I started as a server, I made $2.63 an hour plus tips. That got raised to 3 and some change, and I got raised to 4 and some change, 5 and some change, and now we're at $6.75 as of current day. $6.75. That's all a server or bartender makes before you tip them. What that means is essentially you're working for tips all the time. Now I should note you are guaranteed by law the full $15 an hour. What that means is if I make less than $8.25 an hour in tips, my employer will pay me the difference. What that means in practice then is that first $8.25 you tip anyone isn't really going to the server, it's just subsidizing the business from having to pay that worker that $8.25. And that's what we're trying to change. So over the course of 5 years, we'll raise the tip minimum wage to a full $15 an hour, get rid of that subsidy, and bosses will have to pay their employers, and tips can go back to being what they always should have been, a gratuity for a great experience, not a mandated fee because you feel bad for your server that they can't pay their bills.
All right, we'll find out. Okay, that's it. You can introduce yourself and let us know where you stand on this.
Sure. My name is Bessie King. I am a second generation owner of the Mexico Cafe. My mom started it 25 years ago in January, actually. So we were one of the first Mexican restaurants in the state, and I am also a very proud board member, founder of Massachusetts Restaurants United, which is the only grassroots led by owners, operators, and restaurant workers and food business owners in Massachusetts to represent food businesses through COVID and beyond. So we were formed during COVID to help our industry survive, and now we're still existing. If you want to learn more about Mass Restaurants United, it's massrestaurantsunited.org. Anyone can join, become a member for $50 a year. So it's very different than the MRA, which is more business oriented. And so we, as an industry and largely operators and staff, are saying no to question 5 because it sounds very simple, right? But the ballot, as it's written,
no, we're gonna let her finish before you.
So the ballot, as it's written, and this is a very normal response that we get because there's a lot of passion in this, right? But the ballot, as it's written, does not belong in Massachusetts. First off, because there's already a legislation on the State House that is asking to increase wages for all workers, not just tipped workers. And a lot of people watching may not understand the difference. Tipped workers, as you said, get tips. But the large amount of people that are working at a restaurant are behind the scenes, in the kitchen, in the cleaning areas, all of that stuff, we call them back of the house. So this bill does not include the back of the house workers. And those are, by and large, the people who are working the most in a business. And generally, waiters or servers, tipped workers, do not like to share their tips with back of the house workers because by the numbers, by and large, they make way more than just with minimum wage. So right now, the movement called Protect Our Tips, it has over 90% of the state's tipped workers saying no to this question because it will affect the way their income is coming in. And the other thing that we are trying to say is, hey, let's not make this a ballot issue. Let's make this a legislative issue. And One Fair Wage has said, whether we win or lose, we will continue this battle. So we're saying, that's great, let's continue this battle and make sure that wages go up for everybody. Back of the house and front of the house. Not just tipped workers who are saying literally by larger percentages, don't do this, you're gonna screw us up.
Okay, I'm the moderator. I'm the boss of this. But I do have a quick question, either one of you can answer it. So I used to wait tables. Yes, I was living that lifestyle. When I lived in New York. But prior to that, I was a waitress here in Boston, and I got to keep all my tips. And I was making money. I was making more money as a waitress on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That was my full-time job. But then when I moved to New York, I started working at a restaurant which was really busy, and then they did like a system where I would work really hard, and the other waitress that was on the same shift that I did didn't do half the stuff that I did, but I had to give her half of my tips. I didn't like that because I felt like, why am I working hard to earn my tips, and then you get to reap the benefits of my hard work? And so that is a question that I have posed, and I'm going to send it to you. What would you say to someone like me who did not want to share her tips?
Well, I guess a few things I would say to you. I guess first I would ask, how long was that person who was doing a really bad job and taking away your money, how long were they employed there? Were they there for a long time?
Well, they were there, so let me add. They were there the same time I left, because I was not going to work under those conditions where I felt like you are living off of me right now. And I believe she was there before me. I didn't get to stay. I didn't stay in that environment because it felt to me like she was winning every night and I was not.
So what I would say to that is, generally speaking, people who are in those positions, who they're mooching off their coworkers, they're not going to be employed very long for that exact reason. Their coworkers are the ones who are going to call them out, right? Like, you're not waiting on a boss to perform an evaluation. Every single person who works a shift with you is accountable for you being good at your job. Now, one of the things that's a huge problem in the restaurant industry, I think we can definitely agree, is sexual harassment and sexual discrimination. I worked at a place here in Boston which pulled it just in the front of the house between servers and bartenders. When I was hired as a server. We had hired 2 women as bartenders. The owner of that restaurant came in the day we opened the restaurant and decided that he didn't want men waiting tables, he didn't want women bartending, and made me a bartender and these 2 women servers. Now that's incredibly wrong, but thankfully for everybody in that situation who so desperately needed that job, it was a pooled front of house staff. So while I had no clue what I was doing behind the bar, 2 veteran bartenders on the floor were invested in making sure that I was good at my job, right? And if I wasn't good at my job, I wouldn't have had that job very long because they would make sure I got the hell out of there and they were able to make their money. Now, what I usually point out to people is this is legal in 48 different states. Ironically, New York is the only place that's not legal, so if that happened to you when you moved to New York, you should file a claim with somebody because Massachusetts and New York are the only places that tip pulling is not legal. What I would challenge somebody to point out, though, is where...
In the 90s? Like, 1997 when I was waiting tables. Was it legal then? I didn't find out. I could have been protected under a different class. But.
I would just wrap up by saying, though, it's also not commonplace. Like I said, it's in 48 different states, and I would challenge anyone in those areas to point to the state where the majority of restaurants engage in tip pulling. It's simply not that common. The one benefit of tip pulling, however, is in smaller restaurants, to your point, where the back of house is putting a lot into this and deserves some of that front of house money, and as of right now, legally, we can't tip them.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, because like, how do we tip the scales?
Right. So it's incredibly interesting that you're mentioning that because this bill, as it's written, does not enforce that tips are shared. It suggests that tips should be shared. So if the bill itself wants to address the issue of fair wages for all, it should include in the bill, get rid of tips, or by law, share them with everyone, which it does not do. That is another issue that a majority of workers, and I'm here as an owner-operator, right, but I'm here representing my workers. Because we are a fast casual, not takeout really, but just like a fast casual concept in Mexican food. And we are lucky if they get, $5 to $6 in a day, because people just leave it in the tip jar, or they live like 50 cents in the card, whatever, right? So in a week, if they're making $100 in tips and they share them amongst everyone, because that's our system, that's just like not even their Charlie pass for the month, right? But it's just like maybe their Dunkin' Donuts. However, if this bill, as it's written, actually wanted to address the issue, it would say no to tips across the board in every single restaurant, right? And that would be truly equitable.
But to your point, that's not what the workers want.
Right, or it would say, if you're raising the wages for everybody, you have to include the wages for the back of the house because technically they work more than tip employees and tips are being gone, right? So that is the language that it's not addressing, and that goes back to our issue. It's like, you should not, with all due respect, want fair wage foreigners to Massachusetts because this is a California organization. That's another issue we have with this. Why is somebody else coming into our state and telling us what to do? So this is not an issue between operators, consumers, and workers. This is an issue that all of us constituents need to take up against our elected leaders and say, what are you doing to make living more affordable with minimum wage in our state?
Yeah, and if anybody knows anything about Boston, we have such an adverse reaction to outsiders, right? So, and I also want to say that sometimes we also are very competitive. So when we hear that everybody else is doing it except us, it makes me wonder, from a operator standpoint, I'm going to ask you this question because I've heard from operators that this is going to make it harder for them to keep their doors open because, that there's so much more flexibility with the way they have it now. So why change it?
Sure. I think there's a few things worth responding to there. I guess first off, the reason for changing is so that people make more money. Servers and bartenders, tipped employees currently in the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts make on average about 33% less than the average worker in the Commonwealth. So yeah, they need a raise, plain and simple. As far as sort of like who's behind this and the outsider issue, I would point out I'm from Massachusetts. I'm sure you can tell by my accent. I was born here. I've been here for 34 years. I actually just live right around the corner from here, on the corner of Alpha Road and Park Street. This is not some shady outside organization. The start for the push of one fair wage in Massachusetts was led by 2 Cambridge service employees 11 years ago. To your point, we tried to get it through the legislature. The Massachusetts Restaurant Association pushed back on that, spent a bunch of money to eradicate that possibility. So we went went out and got it on the ballot, with 4,300 signatures from other servers and bartenders alongside another 100,000 plus constituents of Massachusetts. And Massachusetts Restaurant United is primarily representing ownership and operators. If you go to their website, literally to sign up at that $50 minimum level,
You have to pay to be in.
you have to pay a member.
You have to pay.
Can I just finish what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. I like doing it. Take my own medicine.
You have to pay to be a member, and of those membership options, there's only one which would include restaurant employees, and that's as an affiliate of a restaurant. Not as an employee, not as somebody with equity stake in that, not as somebody who's a valued employee who's working in a restaurant, but simply an affiliate, which could be a customer, could be a fan, could be somebody who follows you on social media. Anyone's affiliated with a restaurant, right? Like, that's an open designation to your point earlier that anyone could join. So it's not really a group of people who are representing restaurant workers so much as representing restaurant owners, much like the Massachusetts Restaurant Association claims to speak for restaurant workers, or the Committee to Protect Tips, which you mentioned earlier, who in their own name wants to protect tips, but you hear saying that the right way to do this would be to get rid of tips. And so it seems like we're swinging in a whole lot of different directions to find reasons to vote against simply paying workers a fair wage. I agree with you. We should raise the back of the house wage. We should raise everybody's wage.
Is the wage back happening?
In fact, 83% of restaurants that are
Is there a wage definitely happening in this situation here, Bessie?
Oh, in the.
Because what I'm hearing
No,
from this individual here feels like the people who are losing are the folks who aren't able to
Get benefited by this bill, absolutely. And so, to a couple of points, I really like to clarify. MRU, Massachusetts Restaurants United, is not the MRA.
Yes,
So the MRA is part of the National Restaurant Association, and they have their own source of memberships, which also include chains, include larger establishments, and because of the type of establishments they include, they also charge different fees. They offer different services. They offer different benefits, like insurance discounts, which we do not offer. And I want to clarify that because I take it to heart. Did you know that the RRF, the funding that helped independent local restaurants survive, was largely passed thanks to our efforts? People still have jobs in restaurants thanks to our efforts, and the Independent Restaurant Association at a national level. So, no, we are not the MRA, and no, we are not just owners and operators. So I take that to heart because we have fought so hard at the state level. We helped pass the MGCC grants, 2 rounds of them, which helped local independent owners and operators keep their doors open and you employed. And so if the MRU supports and largely is funded by $50 a year compared to hundreds of dollars by the MRA and the National Restaurant Association. Exactly, but it goes up to $700. But by and large, all of our members pay $50 a year because they do not have the money, and because we know that still largely owners and operators are still in the thousands of dollars of debt from COVID because business is not back to normal. And so our restaurant is still $30,000 in the hole, but we have never stopped employing our employees or giving them their benefits, their tips, or their wages, even though we have almost foreclosed on our house. That is the owners operators that you're falsely criticizing as just not caring. So I take that to heart.
I simply made a point about what is on your website.
This is why healthy debate is really important.
Of course.
And I'm going to ask you because we're going to have to. We have question 1. State Auditor DeZiglio, we pre-recorded her.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna share it here in the show within the time frame that we have. But I'm gonna give you each 30 seconds to convince our audience. Many folks are hearing about question 5 for the first time. Question 2 and question 3, I think, have gotten a lot more clarity and understanding for whatever reason, maybe because not everybody works in a restaurant, there's a level of disconnect. Question 2, because of the education piece, so I want to name that, but I think it's important. You have 30 seconds to convince whoever's paying attention right now to tell us why they should vote yes on question 5 and why they should vote no on question 5, and if people can get plugged into your campaign, there's still time to do so. What does that look like? 30 seconds, and I'm going to start with you. 30 seconds, timer.
30 seconds, I'll move as quickly as I can. So the wages steadily increased, as we've talked about, slowly moving from 3 and some change to 4 and some change to today's 6 and some change. And all that while the wage went up, businesses haven't closed, People haven't stopped tipping, and prices weren't affected very much. If it can sustain that, it can sustain the raise to $9.40 next year, or $13.60 next time you're going to vote on a president in 2028 if this passes. We know how this works already. It exists in 7 different states. Minnesota, where my wife is from, is the most recent that passed it, just before the turn of 1990 when I was born. We have 30 years of data on this. Minnesota still tips at the exact same rate as Massachusetts according to Toast data. I think it's clear we can sustain raising that wage incrementally to the full $15 an hour, and certainly for servers and bartenders like myself who could definitely use that raise, as well as the vast majority across the Commonwealth who make less than average, it'd be a huge benefit to us and to you as the consumer to no longer have to subsidize the wages of us and put that responsibility back where it belongs. You can learn more at yeson5ma.com or follow us on socials at yeson5ma.
T, how long did he take?
A minute.
A minute? Oh, I'll give you a minute.
I'm sorry, I got 2 minutes in my last one. I'll stand short. I apologize.
Equity, I will give you a full minute.
Thank you so much. I think
Make up for the pay gap. Give her a minute 20.
I think for everyone watching, this is a crucial moment for us in whether we're going to allow progressive or progressive pretending bills to pass. So yes, we need equitable wages for all. This bill, and as you said it, is exclusively for tipped workers. If we actually want one fair wage, it has to be for everybody. As an immigrant and as a business owner that has no partners, has never been able to buy a liquor license and only sustains her business based on food, like many of us immigrants do, this bill would hurt our business. And we are not competing against the big fancy restaurants with patios and liquor licenses. We are literally local independents. So my employees would actually be harmed as well, and you would be harmed because your costs would go up. Your menu items would go up. Restaurants have been proven, and One Fair Wage actually confirmed our calculator. It would cost $18,000 per year per employee if this bill passes as is. And as to the other states that have passed this successfully, it has not been a success. Washington, D.C. restaurants have lowered in fine dining or tipped worker. It is, because if you look online.
All right, God, you are bad.
DC is not a state. Pardon me for not being accurate. In the city of Washington, D.C., compared to the city of Boston, Washington, D.C. restaurants have closed in terms of fine dining or sit-down dining, and it's become more casual dining precisely because of this bill. Maine passed this bill and removed it a year later because it did not work. The numbers do not work as they want to make them work, not as we need them to work. So if you are an educated voter and you care about your local businesses, listen to the workers. 90% of the workers are saying no.
Okay, she just told me it was
a minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Oh, jeepers, creepers, 30 seconds and that's it. You kept interrupting her, so you get 20.
I agree wholeheartedly. Awesome. It sounds like you have a great business. I can't wait to come have dinner there soon. Please listen to your service workers. Please listen to bartenders like myself. Please listen to the 4,300 people who signed to put this on the ballot. Give us the raise that we deserve. Thank you.
Okay, y'all.
10 seconds.
What the heck is happening here?
No. And I just want to hold One Fair Wage accountable. They have said, whether this passes or not, we go back to the negotiation table. So let's make sure this does not pass, and together we go to the negotiation table because that will be equitable.
All right, y'all, stop it. I'm done with this program for tonight. Okay? Question 5. I still believe you all have an opportunity to really unpack a little bit further because this one, very similar to the psychedelic drug, also feels a little bit spicy and like there's good and bad on both sides, and I think that that's what makes it so difficult for voters. But I really do appreciate you both bringing so much of yourself into the space because that's what we need. We need to hear directly from the people who are living the realities and or doing the work, and you've done just that. So don't forget, stay woke, vote woke, and we need you all to understand that every vote is going to matter. So make sure that you vote on or before November 5th and make sure your voices get heard. This is it for tonight. Peace.